марта за ноябрьскую месяц.
Отработали вы когда?
What's going on, folks? Today I'm bringing you something new to me, the RG-07 thermal paste by Asus. I'm looking at their website and it's this satire, this, I don't know, this is kind of cringy video here. Like they have a stencil where you can do the whole, yeah, that right there, man. That cracks me up. So when the guy lifts up the stencil, what you end up with is oh man. Anyway, so it's a new thermal paste by Asus to me. When you go to the website and click on the technical specifications, it just talks to you about the package, like the density, viscosity. You know, if you into that type of geeky stuff, which I am. But then like nothing else. You know, like it's a lot of information is just left out. Like they like to brag about, you know, usually thermal paste or thermal interface materials like to brag about the watts per meter Kelvin, you know, thermal conductivity and such things like that. But no, not Asus. So maybe the packaging, when we go and look at the packaging, maybe we'll get some more information out of that. All right, so let's get into the video. All right, folks, so here we have it. I've actually been sitting on this one for a while, maybe a couple of weeks since I've ordered this stuff. If we look at the packaging, there's nothing obvious here, like as far as thermal conductivity or anything like that. Maybe I'm missing it somewhere, but no, the information is just not there. So maybe Asus just doesn't, you know, they're shy. They don't want to advertise. And to be honest, I am with them on that one because that watts per meter Kelvin thing gets thrown around like the F word. It gets thrown around a lot, and a lot of times it means absolutely nothing as far as like measuring performance. Let's go ahead and get this out of this packaging. All right, so just cutting up at the top there exposes the little tube here, but we do get some paper information here, and I think it's going to be very like irrelevant to, yeah, it's just telling you pretty much stuff that is common sense, like you want to you know, clean up your IHS before, or the surface where you're going to be applying this before you actually use this stuff. So let's go ahead and toss that to the side and look at this stuff here. Well, let's see. Okay. I don't know what, I think those are coordinates to something, maybe like a Easter egg or something. For those who dare. So be daring, guys. This is I believe I bought the 5 gram. I believe this is, yeah, it is, I think, or 3 gram. I don't remember, guys. But here's the idea today. Okay, so we got this here. Let's get our 1660 Super, which has had a facelift. This heatsink and shroud do not belong to this card. Okay, I modified it so that it actually had somewhat of a heatsink. Before I had just had 2 fans and it was just a mess. But unfortunately, the connection on this board is Asus proprietary, is like pretty weird. You have it right there. So it's not the regular 4-pin fan connector. So I modified it so that you hook it up actually to the motherboard. We're going to be using a tester system there, and we're going to be controlling the fan speed in the BIOS. We're going to set the fan speed to 70%, which should be enough. One thing I do have to mention about this is that this cooler, the heatsink, is not making any contact with anything other than the core itself. You can see it here clearly. The RAM, the VRAM, I have separate little heat sinks that I attach to that to keep that stuff cool. So this should be very consistent. The results should be very consistent. And I will be pushing the card a little bit harder than usual today, so we can really see what this stuff is made out of. All right, fellas, so here's the idea. The fan speed is already locked at 70% in the BIOS. So you can hear that, those loud little fans there. I am not going to tinker with voltage or frequency, nothing. I'm just going to leave the fans as they are, set in the BIOS at 70%. You can see there, TDP hitting 99%, 100%, 139 watts. And that's our current GPU temp and hotspot. So we got about a 10-degree delta there with MX-6. Let's go ahead and reset this for good measure. And this time I'm going to be running the Furball. Yep, Furmark. Because I had a guy in the comment section asking me, why don't I use Furmark? So I thought, you know what? Sure, I'll go ahead and do Furmark this time around. And I think it makes sense, since this really pushes the cards hard. So okay, so by the time when the test is done in 30 minutes, the plan is to give you minimum, max, and average temperature, and also hotspot, minimum, max, and average, as well as clock frequency, minimum, max, and average. Okay, so that will give us a pretty good idea of how the card is behaving according to the thermal headroom, if there's any. The ambient temperature is 22 Celsius. All right, I'll see you guys in 30 minutes. All right, fellas, so we have reached the end of the first test with MX-6, reaching a maximum temperature of 65.8 Celsius and 77.4 Celsius on the hot spot. Our frequency averaged, well, that's because it's doing nothing right now, so the average is going to change. So, but the frequency, we hit a 1950 megahertz. So, but I'll explain that in the graph towards the end of the video. Okay, now let's go ahead and replace the thermal paste with the Asus thermal paste. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get this card taken apart and apply this stuff right here. It's a funny thing, the story about this 1660 Super. I have had it on a different cooler for a while, but that was atrocious, and I just did not. It wasn't doing its job properly, to be honest. The fans was just, the setup was just wrong. So this is more adequate, in my opinion. Now, this did not work right off the bat. As you can see, I had to add some washers here to the standoffs to make them reach the PCB correctly and have that perfect contact that you see there with the core. So that worked out pretty good. So that's a really good contact there. Oh, there we go, right there. Yep. So I'm pretty happy, and I added these little heat sinks here to the chips, to the VRAM. These right here, they're adopted, so you know they're foster kids. They don't get that much love. But anyway, let's remove this junk, or not junk. This stuff is expensive, so let me take that back. MX-6. I'm not expecting this stuff by Asus to be any better than MX-6 or any good thermal paste out there like Noxua NTH2 or Thermal Grizzly, Cryonaut, or even MX4. Don't have high expectations. Why? Because as far as I am aware, this is Asus' first attempt to thermal pastes. There might be other stuff out there and that was released previous to this. I don't know of it, so I'm sure some of you will let me know in the comments, as you always do. But as far as I am aware, this is the first time that Asus makes an attempt at thermal paste. All right, so now we're going to be adding this stuff here. Let's see how it looks coming out. All right. So I don't have high expectations for this stuff. I mean, if it does great, if it does good, fantastic. If it doesn't, well, it's kind of what I expected. Now, one thing I have to point out is that it is pretty thick. Like, I do not foresee any pump out happening with this paste. It's actually very viscous. It's pretty thick, yeah. And I added a very generous amount on there, so. But as far as the heat sink is concerned, I'm gonna really scrub this because I don't want any contamination, meaning I don't want any microscopic residue from MX-6 to remain here. I want this heat sink to be as clean as possible so we can get some reliable numbers. Okay. All right. So the way I'm going to do that is I am going to first remove the thermal paste that is on here like this. Okay. I'm going to spray some alcohol on my toothbrush so we can get in those little cracks there in between the heat pipes and the aluminum. And that stuff really gets in there, man. That goes to show that this stuff is not perfectly flat. I don't dig this design of heat sinks at all. I like it to be either, you know, the whole thing nickel plated or copper, you know. And this stuff right here is pretty coarse. It's got, you know, pretty rough surface. It's not sandpaper, so it's not going to affect the metal, but it will polish it. It will get rid of any impurities that might be on the surface here. And you can get this stuff from any hardware store where you know, where they sell wood and nails and that sort of thing. That's where you find this stuff. All right, I use it for heat sinks. Because see all that stuff there, and most of this stuff is just oxidation from the aluminum, but in my head it gives me that peace of mind. Even if it's just placebo, I feel good about cleaning it as good as possible. As you can see there, I like it. All right, let's put this back together. Let's not waste any more time. And let's see, how do we have this? The top is actually like this. Yep. Alrighty then. Asus thermal paste. Who would have thought? But then again, a lot of these companies are getting into, like, they're going outside of just graphics cards and motherboards. They're tapping into the RAM industry, like, you know, memory, headphones, and all kinds of other electronics. So I think it is a good thing, you know, a lot more competition out in the market. It's good for the end user, us. More competition, better quality, you know, in theory, and competitive pricing. So that is always a good thing. Okay, that is that there. And we got, let me get up here and show you guys. We got perfect contact right there between the core and the heatsink. Okay, let's put this puppy in the tester system and see how it does. Okie dokie. So let's get our, sorry for the overexposure there, but that will clear out here. Okay, so Our idle temperatures is looking good. 31.8, so we'll just round it up. We'll just say 32, okay? All right, so that's that there. And our hotspot, it's at 42. So let's go ahead and open up Furball. Every time I run this test, I always, feels like a part of me dies. Anyway, okay, so we're going to reset this. All right, start fresh with the load already applied. That's how I like to run it. Just, I'll see you guys in 30 minutes. All right, my peeps, so here we are. We reached the end of this test for the Asus thermal paste. And if you have MX-6 in your inventory, I would suggest that you just stick to MX-6. As you can see, this stuff, it's a little bit worse than MX-6. Maybe a degree or two. MX-6 is better than this stuff. So we'll go ahead and end this test and put up a graph. All right, fellas. So, there's not much to say. As you guys saw, this stuff performed okay, especially during a very torturous test such as Furmark. And now, if you already have MX-6, you're not missing out on anything. I would suggest that you stick with that because you're going to get a slightly better performance with MX-6 versus this new Asus RG-07 thermal paste. Don't get me wrong, it actually performed okay. It did pretty well, but nothing that stands out. Averages, 65 Celsius. The idle temperatures were lower with MX-6. Also, the max temperature with MX-6 was a lot better. Excuse me. And so I don't really have anything negative to say about this Asus RG-07 paste. If this is something that you're looking at to buy because it makes sense financially, sure, go for it. I would say it's good. It's good stuff. I mean, it's able to keep up with MX-6. And as a lot of you out there perhaps know, Furmark is a very torturous test. It really pushes your graphics card to the limit. I did not restrict anything. I let everything flow as you would experience it in your system. The only thing I did was locked the fan speed because I wanted to show if there is any difference just by changing the thermal paste, not by the fan or the frequency of the voltage or nothing like that, just only the thermal paste. And as you can see, well, the video speaks for itself. So I'll leave it here. There's not much to say, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video of my review of the Asus thermal paste RG-07. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. It'll help the channel grow. If you liked the video, please hit thumbs up. If you didn't for whatever reason, you know what to do. If you have any comments, leave it in the comment section. I'll be more than happy to reply to you. Any questions, any feedback, I welcome it all. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.